In the golden fields of Mavuno, a small African village surrounded by tall palm trees and warm sunlight, the air was full of music and laughter. Drums beat softly in the distance, children ran through the grass, and women sang as they worked together. The smell of roasted maize and fresh flowers filled the breeze. Everyone was busy preparing for the wedding of Amina and Tund, two young people loved by the whole village. Amina was a gentle and kind woman with eyes that shone like the morning sun. She always helped others, and her laughter could brighten even the quietest day. For years she and Tund had been friends, growing up in the same dusty streets and sharing small dreams under the same wide sky. Tund was a craftsman, skilled with his hands. He made beautiful wooden chairs and drums that people came from far villages to buy. He was quiet, but his heart was good, and his love for Amina was deep and honest. The wedding had been planned for months. Everyone wanted it to be perfect. The men built long tables near the open square, and the women decorated them with flowers and colored cloth. The old drummers practiced their rhythm late into the night. The children followed Amina everywhere, watching as she tried on her golden jewelry and bright blue head wrap. Her friends teased her, saying she looked like a queen. But even in all the joy, something felt strange to Amina. She could not explain it, but sometimes she felt as if someone was watching her. It was not the normal kind of attention that a bride receives. It was something heavier, something quiet. Whenever she turned her head quickly, she saw nothing but the waving grass and laughing people. She tried to ignore it, telling herself that it was just her imagination. That afternoon, the village square was full of color. The elders sat together under the big tree, talking and laughing about old stories. Amina walked by, smiling respectfully. One of the elders, Baba Kato, called to her and gave her a blessing. "May your home be full of peace, my daughter. May your love grow stronger with every sunrise." Amina thanked him with a small bow. She felt warm inside. Then, as she lifted her eyes, she saw someone standing at the far edge of the square, an old woman she did not recognize. The woman wore a faded brown cloth that looked worn and dusty. Her head was covered, and her face was lined with age. She did not smile, but she did not frown either. Her eyes were sharp, dark, and full of something Amina could not name. For a moment their eyes met, and Amina felt a chill travel down her back. The woman did not move. She just stood there, silent, as if watching everything from a distance. Then, when Amina blinked, she was gone, as if the air itself had swallowed her. Amina looked around, confused. She asked a few people nearby if they had seen the old woman, but no one seemed to know who she was talking about. Trying to shake off the feeling, Amina returned to her friends. They were busy sorting baskets of fruit and cloth for the wedding day. "You look worried," said her best friend Zuri. "Is something wrong?" Amina smiled quickly and shook her head. "No, I am just tired," she said softly. But deep down she knew it was more than that. As the sun began to set, golden light spread across the village. The drummers played faster and the villagers began to dance. Tund arrived with his friends, carrying carved decorations for the wedding hut. When Amina saw him, her heart softened. His smile always brought her comfort. He came up to her and said, "Tomorrow, everything will change for us." She laughed quietly and said, "Yes. It feels like a dream." They sat together for a while under the big mango tree watching the people dance. The smell of the cooking fire wrapped around them. "You look worried," Tund said gently. Amina hesitated before speaking. "There was an old woman. I saw her near the square. She was watching us." Tund frowned slightly. "Who was she?" Amina shook her head. "I don't know. I have never seen her before." Tund smiled and reached for her hand. "Don't think about it too much. Maybe she was just a traveler. People from other villages often come to join celebrations." Amina nodded, though her heart still felt heavy. Later that evening, as everyone ate and sang around the fire, Amina's grandmother, Mama Ifioma, sat beside her. She was an old woman with wise eyes that had seen many years of life. She looked at her granddaughter and said quietly, "Before a big blessing, sometimes the spirits test your heart. You must stay calm, my child. Not every guest at a wedding comes with good intentions." Amina looked at her grandmother carefully. "Do you think something is wrong, Nana?" Mama Ifioma smiled gently. "No, my dear. But always keep your spirit strong. Joy attracts both love and envy. Just remember who you are and who watches over you." Amina nodded and hugged her grandmother. Her heart felt a little lighter, though she still could not forget the strange look in the old woman's eyes. That night, the stars shone brightly over Mavuno. The air was filled with the sound of drums, laughter, and love. The villagers danced until late, their shadows moving like waves under the moonlight. Amina stood near her hut, looking up at the sky, thinking about the life waiting ahead. Behind her, a small gust of wind blew through the palm leaves, and for a second she thought she heard a faint whisper, almost like someone calling her name. She turned quickly, but no one was there. The firelight flickered and the night seemed still again. She took a deep breath and smiled to herself. Tomorrow would be her wedding day, the beginning of a new life with Tund. She whispered a prayer for peace and protection, then went inside her hut to rest. But outside, near the dark edge of the village, a shadow moved quietly among the trees. The old woman stood there once more, her eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. She watched the lights of the village flicker in the distance, then turned and disappeared into the night. As the days moved closer to the wedding, a strange quiet seemed to fall over the village of Mavuno. The people were still smiling, still singing, but Amina could feel something hidden under the laughter, something she could not see but could sense like a shadow at her back. The excitement of the wedding should have filled her heart with joy, but instead, small worries began to grow like tiny weeds in her chest. It started one morning when she woke to find her golden necklace missing. The necklace had been her mother's, passed down from her grandmother before that. It was simple but precious, a thin chain with a small sun pendant carved from amber. Amina always wore it close to her heart even while she slept. But that morning when she touched her neck, the chain was gone. She looked around her hut. The table was untouched, her clothes folded neatly, nothing else was missing. She searched under her mat, inside her baskets, even outside near the water jar. The necklace was nowhere. Confused and a little shaken, she went to tell her grandmother. Mama Ifioma listened quietly, her old hands stilling over the cloth she was folding. "Did you dream last night?" she asked softly. Amina frowned. "No, Nana. I slept well." Her grandmother nodded slowly. "Strange things sometimes happen before a wedding," she said. "But my child, keep your heart strong. Not everything that shines brings light." Amina smiled, though uneasily. "It is only a necklace, Nana. Perhaps I misplaced it." That night, as she prepared for bed, she decided to pray. She asked for peace and protection, her voice calm and clear in the quiet room. Then she lay down, trying not to think about the strange feeling that had followed her all day. When morning came, Amina woke and stretched. As she turned her pillow, something small and cold touched her fingers. She froze. Lying neatly beneath the pillow was her missing necklace. The chain was coiled perfectly, the pendant glinting faintly in the sunlight. For a moment, Amina simply stared at it. Then she picked it up and whispered, "How did you come back?" A soft chill moved through her arms. She knew she had not placed it there. Someone, or something, had. She tried to laugh at herself. "Maybe I was too tired," she said out loud, though her voice shook slightly. "I must have dropped it there in my sleep." But deep down she didn't believe her own words. As the day went on, other strange things began to happen. The women of the village were cooking the big meal for the celebration, a soup made with chicken, yam, and fresh herbs. The whole square smelled wonderful. But just before sunset, a cry rose from the cooking hut. When Amina arrived, she saw the women standing around the large pot, frowning. The soup had turned sour. It smelled strange, almost bitter. No one could explain it. "We cooked it fresh this morning," said one of the women. "It was fine just an hour ago." Mama Ifioma arrived, her walking stick tapping the floor. She tasted a small spoonful and quickly spat it out. "This is no natural spoil," she said softly. "Something unseen has touched this food." The women crossed themselves and whispered old prayers under their breath. Amina stood still, her hands cold. "Maybe the fire was too hot," she said weakly. But again no one seemed convinced. That night, Amina tried to stay calm. She focused on her tasks, folding her bridal veil, sorting flowers, checking decorations. But when she returned from fetching water, she found the veil gone from her bed. After searching the room, she stepped outside and saw it, tangled in a thorny bush behind the hut, its soft white fabric torn slightly at the edge. She froze again. No wind could have carried it that far. Someone had placed it there. She looked around quickly, but there was no one in sight. Only the sound of crickets and the gentle rustle of palm leaves in the dark. When she told her grandmother later, Mama Ifioma sighed deeply. "My child," she said, "you must understand, not every smile at a wedding is pure. Some guests come with hidden hearts. Some people hide jealousy behind their laughter." Amina frowned. "Do you think someone is trying to harm me?" Her grandmother's eyes softened. "Harm does not always come with weapons, Amina. Sometimes it comes as envy or bitterness. You are young and happy, and that light draws both good and bad." Amina tried to brush off the warning. It must all be accidents, she said. People are tired. Mistakes happen. Mama Ifioma looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Maybe so. But, my dear, when things go missing and return on their own, pay attention. When food spoils for no reason, pay attention. When cloth moves without wind, pay attention. The world speaks in signs, we only have to listen. That night, Amina sat outside her hut under the stars. The sky was clear and the moonlight touched the grass with silver. From the distance came the soft sound of drumming, slow, peaceful, almost sleepy. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She wanted to believe that nothing was wrong. She wanted to believe the world was as simple as she had always known it to be, full of laughter, love, and blessings. But her heart was uneasy. From the corner of her eye she saw movement. She turned her head quickly and for a brief second she saw someone standing near the old mango tree, the same old woman from before. The woman's shape was faint in the moonlight, but Amina could see her clearly. The same faded brown cloth. The same stillness. The same eyes that seemed to look right through her. Amina blinked, and the woman was gone. Just like before. Her hands trembled slightly as she stood up and went inside. She lit a small oil lamp and placed it near her window. The golden light made her room feel safer, warmer. She held her necklace tightly in her hand, the pendant pressing against her skin. Maybe Nana is right, she whispered. Maybe not every smile is true. Outside, the wind picked up again, carrying the faint echo of laughter, or maybe it was just the sound of the leaves brushing together. Amina could not tell. She lay down to rest, but her mind stayed awake long into the night, full of questions and quiet fears. Somewhere far away, a drumbeat slowed and stopped, leaving only silence. And in that silence, hidden beneath the peaceful songs of the night, something unseen moved quietly, waiting for the wedding day to come. The night before the wedding arrived, and the whole village of Mavuno glowed with light and laughter. A great bonfire burned in the center of the square, its flames reaching high into the warm night sky. The drums began to play, deep and steady, their rhythm echoing through the trees. Men clapped, women sang, and children danced in circles, their shadows moving like spirits in the firelight. It was a night of celebration, a night meant for joy and blessings. Amina stood near the fire, her face glowing in the orange light. Her blue dress shimmered softly and beads decorated her hair. For a while she forgot all her worries, the missing necklace, the spoiled food, the torn veil. Tonight she wanted only to be happy. Tun sat nearby with the other men, smiling as he watched her dance. The love between them was clear, shining like the moon above. As the drums grew louder, Amina began to dance with her friends. Zuri, her best friend since childhood, clapped and laughed beside her. Tomorrow you will be a married woman, she teased. Amina laughed, spinning in the dust, her bracelets ringing like tiny bells. But suddenly as the fire crackled and the songs filled the air, Amina felt a strange chill. It was small at first, just a cool breeze brushing the back of her neck. Then it deepened, a shiver that did not belong in such warm air. She stopped dancing and turned slowly. At the edge of the light, half hidden in the dark, stood the same old woman she had seen before. Her faded brown cloth hung loosely around her shoulders, and her eyes caught the firelight in a strange, glassy way. She wasn't smiling, but her lips were moving, whispering something softly, words Amina could not understand. For a moment, Amina couldn't move. Her body felt heavy, her heart beat fast. The drums seemed to grow quieter, the laughter faded. The woman stepped closer, her feet barely making a sound on the dry ground. The air felt colder as she came near. When she reached Amina, she leaned close and whispered something in a low voice, a language Amina had never heard before. The words flowed like water but carried a strange weight. The woman's hand rose and rested on Amina's shoulder. At that touch, a wave of cold ran through Amina's body. Her vision blurred and her knees weakened. The laughter and music around her spun together into a dizzy hum. She tried to speak but couldn't find her voice. Zuri, who had been watching from nearby, rushed forward and caught her before she fell. "Amina, what's wrong?" she cried. The old woman stepped back into the shadows, her face unreadable, then disappeared among the crowd as if she had never been there. Amina pressed a hand to her forehead, breathing fast. I don't know," she said softly. "She said something to me." Her hand was so cold. Zuri looked around quickly. "Who?" "The old woman," Amina whispered. "The one I told you about." Zuri frowned and tightened her grip on Amina's hand. "Come. We must go see Elder Jabari. He will know what to do." They left the firelight and walked toward the edge of the village where Elder Jabari lived. The music and laughter grew distant behind them, replaced by the quiet sounds of the night, the chirping of insects, the rustle of leaves. The moonlight guided their steps along the dusty path. Elder Jabari's hut stood beneath a large baobab tree. The door was half open and a warm light flickered inside. When they entered, the old man was sitting cross-legged on a mat, grinding herbs with a stone bowl. His hair was white and his eyes were calm and wise. He looked up and smiled faintly. "Ah, the bride comes to visit me on the night before her wedding. What brings you here, child?" Amina knelt before him. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Elder, something is wrong. There is a woman, an old woman, who has been watching me. Tonight she came to me. She said something I did not understand and touched my shoulder. I felt cold, dizzy. I do not know what it means." Zuri added quickly, "I saw it with my own eyes. She looked strange, Elder. Her eyes were not like ours. And when she touched Amina, I felt the air change." Elder Jabari listened silently. When they finished, he nodded slowly and set down his bowl. "In our land," he began, "there are many who bless and many who curse. Not all words that sound kind bring good fortune. Sometimes, envy hides behind a blessing. Sometimes, darkness wears a smile." Amina looked frightened. "Is she trying to harm me?" The old man's gaze softened. "Perhaps not harm but disturb. Sometimes when love is pure, it shines too brightly. There are hearts that cannot stand such light. You must not fear her, but you must protect yourself." He stood up slowly and walked to a small wooden shelf. From it, he took a bowl filled with dried herbs and a small calabash of water. He placed them on the ground before Amina. "These are cleansing herbs," he said. "We will burn them and let the smoke wash away what is not meant to be near you." He lit the herbs and soon, a gentle smoke rose in the air, carrying the scent of earth and leaves. He waved the smoke around Amina's head and shoulders, murmuring a quiet prayer in an old language. The flickering light danced across his face as he spoke. When the ritual was done, he sprinkled a few drops of the sacred water on her palms. "You will be fine now," he said kindly. "When morning comes, take this small charm and wear it under your dress. It will protect your spirit." Amina thanked him softly, feeling warmth return to her chest. The dizziness had faded, replaced by calm. Zuri exhaled deeply, her shoulders relaxing. "Thank you, Elder Jabari," she said. He smiled and nodded. "Go back to the fire, but do not let her eyes meet yours again. The night tests the strong, but dawn always comes for those who walk in truth." Amina and Zuri walked back through the quiet village. The drums had slowed now and only a few people remained near the dying fire. Amina glanced once at the shadows but saw no sign of the old woman. The air felt lighter, cleaner somehow. When she reached her hut, she looked up at the stars and whispered a prayer of thanks. Inside, she placed the charm under her pillow, just as Elder Jabari had told her. As she lay down, her body still tingled slightly from the smoke, but her heart felt safe. Zuri stayed with her that night, sleeping near the doorway. The two friends talked softly until their eyes grew heavy. Before sleep claimed her, Amina thought she heard a faint sound outside, a rustle like footsteps moving away into the trees. She didn't get up to look. She only whispered, "Let the morning come quickly." And somewhere far away beneath the same moonlight, the old woman walked alone through the fields, her face hidden in shadow, her whisper fading into the wind. Elder Jabari sat quietly in his small hut, the dim light of an oil lamp flickering against the mud walls. Amina sat before him, her hands resting on her knees, her face pale from worry. Outside, the night was still except for the sound of distant crickets. Zuri sat nearby, watching the elder carefully. He had already listened to Amina's story, the strange woman, the whisper, the cold hand, and the dizziness that followed. He did not speak for a long while. His calm eyes looked past them as if he was reading something written in the air. Then slowly he nodded. "The world," he said softly, "is full of many eyes. Some look at you with love, some with envy, and some with confusion. When your spirit shines bright, it attracts both good and bad. That is why we must learn how to protect our light." He reached beside him and opened a small woven basket. Inside were herbs, some green and fresh, some dry and dark. Their smell filled the air, sharp and earthy. "These herbs," he continued, "are sacred. Our ancestors used them to cleanse the spirit and guide lost energy back to peace." Amina watched quietly as he took a handful of the herbs and placed them into a clay bowl. He lit a small flame beneath them and soon thin curls of smoke began to rise. The smoke smelled strange, sweet at first, then warm and comforting like rain after a storm. Elder Jabari began to move his hands slowly through the smoke, drawing circles in the air. He spoke softly, his voice low and steady. Evil doesn't always wear a monster's face, he said gently. Sometimes, it hides behind a blessing spoken in jealousy. Sometimes it comes in the shape of love that is not true. Amina listened carefully, her heart pounding. So the woman meant to harm me? She asked. The elder looked at her with kind eyes. Perhaps she did not mean harm in the way you think, he said. But her heart carried heavy thoughts. Maybe she wanted what you have: peace, love, joy. When a person's spirit is filled with envy, their words can bring confusion to others. But remember, no dark thought can touch a soul that stands in the light. He lifted the bowl and waved the smoke around Amina's head and shoulders. The air grew hazy, and she could feel the warmth of the herbs reaching her skin. Zuri watched silently, her eyes wide as the light from the lamp danced across the room. Elder Jabari began to chant in a low, rhythmic tone. The language was old, full of sounds that seemed to hum with energy. He moved the smoke in slow motions, tracing invisible patterns in the air. As the scent filled the hut, Amina felt her heart begin to slow. The tightness in her chest started to ease. After a few moments, the elder took the calabash of cool water from beside him. He dipped his fingers into it and sprinkled small drops onto Amina's forehead, then her palms. The water felt refreshing, almost electric. This is not ordinary water, he said. It carries the blessings of the river. Water remembers everything. It cleanses what the fire cannot. Amina closed her eyes as he prayed softly, his voice like a calm river itself. Let the light guard her. Let peace rest on her path. Let her love grow strong and true. As the prayer ended, a silence filled the room, a peaceful, heavy silence that made the night outside seem far away. Amina opened her eyes slowly. For the first time in days she felt calm. The dizziness had gone. The cold feeling from the woman's touch was gone too. She took a deep breath. The air felt clean. She could almost hear her heart whisper in gratitude. Thank you, Elder, she said quietly. I feel lighter now. Elder Jabari smiled. You are strong, my child. Never doubt your spirit. When darkness knocks, it does not mean you are weak. It only means your light is shining too bright for some eyes to bear. Protect it with wisdom, not fear. Zuri smiled and squeezed Amina's hand. I told you the elder would know what to do, she said. He chuckled softly. Tomorrow before the sun rises, take this. He handed Amina a small charm made of beads and dried seeds tied together with string. Wear it close to your heart during your wedding. It carries a prayer of peace. And remember, you must walk into your day with a clear heart. Forgive what frightens you and fear will lose its power. Amina looked at the charm with care. It was simple, but it felt warm in her hand as if it already held life. I will wear it, she promised. Elder Jabari nodded and began to cover the herbs. The last of the smoke drifted toward the open window, curling into the night. The smell lingered softly, like a blessing that did not want to leave. Outside, the moon hung low, glowing silver against the dark sky. When Amina and Zuri stepped out of the hut, the cool air touched their faces. The village was quiet now. The fire from the celebration had burned down to glowing embers. A few people still sat around it, talking in low voices. Zuri looked at Amina. Do you feel better? Yes, Amina said. I feel lighter. As if something heavy has been lifted. They walked back slowly through the sleeping village. The stars above them sparkled like tiny eyes watching from the heavens. Somewhere a bird called softly. When they reached Amina's hut, she paused at the door and looked back toward the elder's home. He said light protects those who stand in truth, she whispered. Zuri smiled. Then you have nothing to fear, my friend. You have always walked in light. Amina smiled too. She went inside and placed the charm beside her pillow. She touched her forehead where the elder had sprinkled water. It was cool still, like a gentle reminder of peace. She thought about all that had happened. The strange woman, the whisper, the dizziness, and now this warmth that filled her chest. For the first time in many nights, she lay down without fear. Her thoughts slowed and her heart felt strong again. She whispered a short prayer, thanking the ancestors for their guidance. Outside, the wind moved softly through the trees, carrying the faint scent of the herbs that Elder Jabari had burned. It floated through the village like invisible light, brushing the doors and windows of every sleeping home. And in that calm, under the stars of Mavuno, Amina's spirit rested. Her fears had been replaced with peace, her doubts with faith. She knew now that darkness could only touch her if she allowed it, and she would no longer live in fear of hidden eyes. Her light had been blessed, and it would shine brighter than ever. The morning came softly over Mavuno village. The sky glowed with warm colors, gold, pink, and a hint of orange that spread over the huts and tall trees. Birds sang their first songs, and the smell of fresh flowers filled the air. It was Amina's wedding day. The drums started early, echoing through the fields, calling everyone to gather. Women in bright cloths carried baskets of fruit and flowers. Men helped raise the wedding canopy, decorated with palm leaves and beads that shimmered in the light. Children ran through the crowd laughing, their faces painted with joy. Everything looked peaceful, almost like a dream. Amina sat quietly inside her hut while her friends helped her dress. Zuri tied the last ribbon on her gown, smiling proudly. "You look like the morning itself," she said. Amina smiled, her reflection glowing softly in the mirror made of polished glass. Her heart was calm now. The fear that had once lived in her chest was gone. The blessing of Elder Jabari still lingered in her spirit like warm sunlight. She could feel the power of his words, a protection deeper than any charm. Around her neck, she wore the small bead charm he had given her. It rested against her heart, light and comforting. Outside, the drums changed rhythm, the sign that it was time. Amina took a deep breath. Zuri held her hand. "Are you ready?" Amina nodded. "Yes." More than ever. The two stepped out into the open air, and the villagers gasped softly. Amina looked radiant. Her white dress flowed like water, and her head scarf shimmered in the sun. She moved gracefully, her steps steady and full of peace. The women ululated and the men cheered. The air was alive with music, drums, and laughter. At the far end of the path stood Tund. He was waiting under a canopy of palm leaves, dressed in white and gold, his eyes shining with pride. When he saw her, his smile widened. He had always admired Amina's beauty, but today she looked different, not just beautiful but powerful in a quiet way, like a queen who knew her worth. As Amina walked, petals fell from the hands of children, and songs rose higher into the sky. Every step she took seemed to echo with peace. Her mother, standing near the elders, wiped tears from her eyes. The drums grew louder, their rhythm steady and strong, like a heartbeat for the village. But as Amina reached the center of the gathering, a shadow passed along the crowd. It was soft, almost unnoticeable, but Amina felt it. She turned her head slightly, and there she was, the old woman. She stood near the edge of the crowd, dressed in the same faded cloth as before. Her eyes met Amina's from across the field. For a moment, everything went silent. The drums seemed to fade, the songs fell quiet. The woman's expression was different now, softer, calmer, almost gentle. There was no coldness in her gaze, no sharpness in her face. Only something that looked like sorrow and peace. Amina didn't move. Her heart didn't race this time. She simply looked back, steady and calm. Then the old woman gave a slow smile, small but full of meaning. It was as if she was saying, "You are safe now. The light has won." And just like that, a breeze passed through the crowd. The woman's faded cloth fluttered, and in a blink, she was gone. No one saw her leave. It was as if the wind had carried her away. Amina took a deep breath and turned back to Tund. The sunlight touched her face, making her glow even more. Tund reached out his hand and she placed hers in his. "You are glowing," he whispered with a smile. Amina smiled back. "The light is kind," she said softly. The ceremony began. Elder Jabari stood before them, holding a carved wooden staff. His deep voice filled the air. "Today we join two hearts in love," he said. "But remember, love is more than joy. It is wisdom. It is patience. It is the courage to keep your spirit pure, even when the world tries to shadow it." Amina and Tund repeated their vows, their voices steady. The crowd clapped and cheered. The air was thick with blessings, songs, prayers, laughter. Mama Ifioma danced with the other elders, her face glowing with pride. As the feast began, Amina looked around. She could see every guest smiling, laughing, celebrating. For the first time she felt that every heart there was open and true. No hidden darkness, no silent envy, only warmth. The strange unease that had followed her for days was gone. Zuri came to her side with a plate of fruit. "You did it," she said, laughing. "You made it to your wedding without fainting again." Amina laughed too. "It seems I had a good teacher in courage." Tund joined them, placing his arm around Amina's shoulders. "Elder Jabari told me something this morning," he said. "He said, light doesn't chase away shadows by fighting. It wins by shining. I think I understand that now." Amina nodded. "Yes," she said softly. "And I will keep shining." As the sun began to lower in the sky, painting everything in gold, Amina looked once more toward the edge of the village. The trees swayed gently. The wind moved the grass in soft waves. Somewhere she thought she saw a flicker of faded cloth disappear behind the palms, or maybe it was just the light. She didn't feel afraid. Instead, she whispered a short prayer in her heart, not for herself but for the old woman. A prayer of peace and forgiveness. For perhaps that woman had once been hurt too, and envy had been her only shield. The drums began again, faster this time. The dancing grew wilder. Children clapped their hands and spun in circles. Tun took Amina's hand and led her into the center. Together they danced, their movements full of joy and freedom. The village clapped in rhythm, their laughter ringing through the air. As they danced, Amina's charm caught the sunlight and shimmered brightly. It seemed almost alive, glowing with a warm, golden light that spread gently through the space. Some of the villagers gasped softly, but Elder Jabari just smiled knowingly. He raised his staff slightly and whispered a blessing under his breath. By the time the sun began to set, the celebration had become a sea of color and sound. Music filled every corner, and the smell of roasted food drifted through the air. Amina sat beside Tund, watching the sky turn shades of purple and red. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Today feels like a dream," she said quietly. "It's real," Tund whispered. "And it's just the beginning." Amina smiled. A beginning filled with light. And as the stars began to appear, one by one, she knew the truth of Elder Jabari's words. Wisdom and faith were the strongest shields. Envy and darkness could never touch a heart that chose to stay open and kind. So under the African sky, surrounded by love, laughter, and the whispering wind, Amina and Tun began their new life, not just as husband and wife, but as two souls protected by the light they carried within. The night came slowly, peaceful and calm. The drums faded into soft rhythms, and the stars shone brighter above the quiet village. Somewhere, perhaps far away, the old woman smiled too, her spirit finally at rest.